Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Power Chord Productions and Podcastings. I am your host, Javon Harrington, back to hit you with another video. And today we are going to be continuing One Piece Rangers of the Sea, Part 3, based on the heroes of the Morphing Grid series. Now, where we last left off with our series, we saw the story of Zoro and how he got his Morpher, as he is now on his way to Marineford to meet with the other Straw Hats in the attempt to save Luffy's brother Ace from execution. As the series progresses, I decided to go with the suggestion from one of our fellow followers in one of the previous comment sections in detailing how each ranger got their powers and how they make their way to Marineford. From time to time, we will check back in with Luffy as he progresses and makes his way there also, leading to the penultimate climax when all of our Rangers gather together for the final battle at Marineford. Also, I do want to say happily that we have now completed almost all of the stories on our channel, meaning that next week we will solely be dedicated to One Piece Rangers of the Sea as we move forward with the final tale in the Power Rangers story. Once we're done with that, we will be devoting our time specifically to the two crossover events, the anime Power Ranger crossover event and the anime Avengers crossover event as well. And once we're done with that, that will officially wrap up our slate of videos. So as we now approach the end of, well, an epic saga to say the least, a saga that has been in the works for well over a year now. It was around this time last year we started with the beginning of our various multiversal stories, from what if Spider-Man was in ReZero to what if Deku was a Power Ranger, and now we're meeting the end. We're meeting the end of all of it, all of the stories, everything that I've made on this channel. All of the fights, everything that's been connected, it's all coming to an end very soon. And so for that, I want to say thank you to everyone who has supported Power Chord Productions and Podcastings, everyone who's watched every series. Like I've always said, I cannot do it without you. You make the channel grow, you make the core grow. And so I hope that you will enjoy this final ride as we are now reaching the ultimate climax for our year-long saga and for everything else that's to come. But anyway, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Sanji would finally awaken. It had been 3 days since their fight in the Sabaody archipelago. 3 days since life as he knew it had changed. As he awoken from the crater that he had found himself crashed into, in the shape of a paw print, he was left with the words from Bartholomew Kuma about the execution of Fire Fist Ace in less than 21 days, as well as the fact that if the Straw Hat Pirates were going to make an attempt to save him, then they were going to need a great power. Of course, for Sanji, he never thought that his life would come to this. From his days serving in the Baratie to all the adventures he had gone on before now. As he reflected on his life, he couldn't help but wonder what it was that brought him to this point. The only thing Sanji wanted to do was find the All Blue, become a great chef, become a connoisseur of women. But yet now he found himself in this place of all places. But of course, Sanji didn't have time to feel sorry for himself on such things. The only thing he had to do was find that stupid device, whatever it might be, a sailomorpher, and try his best to get to Marine 4 within the time that he had. Of course, he had already lost 3 days, so that left him with a little more than 18 days to do what he needed to do and get where he needed to go. Sanji found himself running across the island tirelessly, searching every crook and every crevice. Of course, he would stop and take time to catch his breath. Thankfully, finding water wasn't too hard, and also there was plenty of wildlife and other vegetation, so being able to whip up something really quick to cook, well, that was also a bonus. One evening, as he had stopped to prepare a quick meal, take a rest before starting his search once again, he would hear rustling in the bushes. Sanji looked up cautiously, not knowing who or what was going to come out. There's no point in hiding, so you might as well show yourself, if you know what's good for you. Just then, stumbling would occur, and before Sanji's very eyes, a young man would come falling from out of the vegetation. The man was well dressed, to say the least, for an island like this. Of course, there were some scuffs and some marks on his clothing, but that was to be expected. The young man stood in attention, rather awkwardly. He also had blonde hair, similar to Sanji's, although his was not as refined, a lot more scruffy in look. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. Who are you, and what are you doing on this island?" "Oh, well, you could say I kinda got shipwrecked." "Shipwrecked?" "Well, it's complicated. I just came over because I saw the fire, and, I'm just a little, It didn't take much for Sanji to realize that the man was hungry. Without saying a word, Sanji offered up some of his food. The young boy bowed gratefully as he went to devouring the meal. For something that was just scrounged out in the forest, it was actually pretty immaculate, to say the least. Sanji was definitely an expert in his craft. Of course, for the experience that he had gone through, for someone like Sanji to be able to make a meal out of almost anything, well, that was more of an understatement than anything else. The young man ate and ate until he had his fill. And for Sanji, he felt satisfied in that. It was just something about him, always wanting to help someone in need who was hungry. Once he had finished eating, the young man would thank him, as he would introduce himself, his name being Don. Of course, Sanji would oblige and do the same, although he still had many questions. For one, who was Don? What was he doing here? Sanji, while wanting to be polite, was not at all trying to be foolish. Don would reveal that he was a doctor for his crew. Hearing that, it made Sanji think about his old friend, Chopper, their doctor as well. Although Sanji would have to explain that their doctor was actually a reindeer. All the same though, Don was a pretty nice guy. He was cordial, polite, didn't really seem much of the pirate type. Didn't really seem as though he were much of a fighter or anything along those lines. Of course, Don would ask Sanji what he was doing here on this island of all places. Sanji explained that he had lost a fight and, well, he was sent here. But he couldn't stay for long. There was somewhere he needed to be. Don would inquire and ask more, but for Sanji, he didn't really feel like explaining it. In the end, he had already wasted too much time with this little conversation. He got up and bid him farewell, telling him he could have what was left over of the food and he could enjoy the fire for as long as he wanted, as he continued moving on ahead. However, before he could get too far away, Don was following close behind. Sanji looking at him rather confused though, wondering just what exactly he wanted with him. In the end, Sanji was on an important mission. He couldn't afford to waste time catering to some random stranger. However, Don promised that he was going to help repay for the meal in any way that he could. So if he could aid Sanji in his journey, then he was more than willing to do so. Besides, he was a doctor after all. If anything were to happen to him, at least he'd be there to help. Sanji thought this over for a moment, and ultimately, he decided to go along with it. The guy didn't seem like anything of a threat anyway, and if worse came to worse, well, Sanji knew how to defend himself. The two of them would continue their search throughout the island in and of itself. Sanji briefly explaining what it was that he was looking for. Of course, it was kind of hard to explain since this was something that Sanji had never experienced. The idea of a morpher or anything along those lines. Even more so, the treacheries of the world and the world government. This upcoming fight at Marineford and everything else in between. Don was captivated by it all. But that wasn't the only thing they talked about. Don asked a lot about Sanji's own personal life, about his own dreams, goals, and ambitions. Sanji explained he wanted to find the All Blue, a place where the four oceans met at once, and where marine life of all kind could be found. A place where he could cook the finest meals, the greatest cuisines, his own restaurant one day, and to have beautiful women from all the blues gathered together around him. That was the life that Sanji wanted, but at the same time, he also served as a member of the Straw Hat Pirates, to sail across the Grand Line into the worlds beyond, as his captain had the dream of becoming king of the pirates. Don would mention that he had heard about the tale of the king of the pirates, a man by the name of Goldie Roger. Sanji confirmed that was the last king, and since then, everyone from all over had been trying to find the One Piece, the treasure that would lay hold to the next king. Don remarked that to take on such a task, that could be pretty foreboding. Of course, Sanji understood this better than anyone. It wasn't that he didn't have faith in Luffy to do it. No, he had seen what his captain could do time and time again. He had seen the great lengths that Luffy would go through for himself and for his crew. If anyone truly had a shot, it was Luffy. However, Don would have a rebuttal for this, just out of concern. He would ask Sanji, what was he going to do if his life came to an end before that? Hearing this, it caused Sanji to stop for a moment. Of course, Don wasn't trying to be rude or anything, but he had to speak about it realistically. From everything he had heard from what Sanji had said, from everything that the Straw Hats had done so far, he had already made himself an enemy to the world. He could never live the normal life that he probably would have wanted, to just find the All Blue, which that in and of itself was already going to be hard. But now he was aiding in someone's dream of becoming king of the pirates. Of course, Sanji had never really thought much of it until now, but Don had to make out this point. What happened if, by trying to aid Luffy in his dreams, it resulted in Sanji's own death? I mean, in the end of the day, would Luffy really want that? Of course, Sanji would turn back to Don in anger for even saying such a thing, but Don had to be practical. I mean, really think about it. If your captain is as selfless as you say he is, then do you really think he would want you to go through all this for him? For his sake? This is his brother after all. Maybe this is something he wants to do on his own. Maybe this is just something that his brother has come to accept. But don't say anything, I'm not trying to... Well, you've done enough. Well, someone has to say it. Look at you. You're running yourself ragged. For 6 days, you've been on this island searching non-stop for this power. A power you don't know what could happen to you. You're doing all of this to fight for just the dreams of your captain. I mean, it's not that I don't understand why. Of course, everyone wants to help their friends in need. I can understand that better than anyone. But at the same time, when are you ever going to think about yourself? I mean, finding the All Blue is already going to be difficult, let alone trying to find the One Piece. And what happens if on your crusade to fulfill your friend's own dream, you die in the process and lose yours? You can't have it all, Sanji. Hearing that, Sanji actually paused for a moment. He actually had to stop and think about it. He couldn't have it all. And in a sad way, this young man was right. You can't have it all in this world. Life just doesn't work that way. For so long, Sanji had been swept up in the merriment, the adventures, the highs and the lows of the crew, that he never once stopped and thought to himself, really, what if his life came to an end before he accomplished his dreams? Had he just been a madman this whole time? I mean, it's not like you had to be a pirate to go sailing and going on adventures. No, he could have done it in a safer way. And yet, he joined a pirate crew. He joined the pirate crew of a guy who wanted to become the king of the pirates, of a guy who had made himself and his whole crew by association enemies of the world freaking government. And now, he was on a wild goose chase for this mysterious power to try to rush to Marineford, where every dangerous pirate, marine, naval officer, and admiral in all of the Four Blues were going to be gathering to fight in a death match to the slaughter. And he was doing all of this to save a guy that he had only met once, back in Alabasta. And even then, it's not like they really knew each other all that well. Was he really a madman for doing what he was doing? For going through everything that he was going through? Only a madman would try to do all of this. Of course, though, at the same time, if it hadn't been for Luffy, Sanji might not have had the courage to go. Of course, he had always talked about how much he wanted to do it, but in the end of the day, how much time had passed and he never left the Baratie? Was he ever going to leave? I mean, he always said he wanted to, but in the end, it was Luffy that gave him the kick in the ass to do so. If it hadn't been for Luffy, sure, he wouldn't have gone through the hard times that he had. But at the same time, he wouldn't have made the friends that he did. And in the end, wasn't that the most important thing? Sure, they all had their dreams. But in the end, none of them were selfish enough. He knew none of them would be selfish enough to place their own dreams over the lives of others. Luffy wanted to be king of the pirates, for crying out loud, and yet he was the first one willing to sacrifice himself for his friends, time and time again. If Luffy was putting his life on the line to accomplish his dreams and his goals, then why did he have any right to do any less for his Nakama? As he thought it over, it gave Sanji the courage that he needed to press forward, to know that even if it was selfish to want it all, to try to have it all, in the end, Sanji was just the type of man who wanted it. He wanted to find the All Blue. He wanted to have women of all kinds wrapped in his arms, and he wanted to be the chef for the man who would become the next pirate king. Sanji had no doubt. He wanted it. He knew he wanted it, and he knew he was going to have it. As they continued on in their journey, they felt as though they were coming close to the end. They had started to ascend up the side of a cliff. As they had done so, there had seemed to be an earth slide. Large debris and boulders started to slide down and fall over up top of them. Don had tried to keep himself steady, but, however, he had managed to slip his foot, and it seemed as though he were about to fall and be crushed. Seeing this, Sanji knew that he couldn't let the young man die. But at the same time, this could be his one and only chance to get what he had come for. He couldn't have it all, but could he really make that kind of sacrifice? Without even thinking about it, Sanji jumped back towards Don. As the large boulder was about to come over them, Sanji would spin on his foot, causing it to ignite in flame, as he used the Déambulaison, kicking away at the large rock and destroying it, although in the process it ended up sending them much farther from where they had gone. As they had managed to crash back onto the ground below, Sanji would stand back on his feet. Don, thankfully, had been protected, as he could see the look on Sanji's face, the determination. Sanji would ask Don not to come with them any further, as he knew what he needed to do. Of course, thanks to the earth slide, getting up there now would be even more harder than it was, but even still, even if it took Sanji all the way up to the 20th day, and he only had 1 day more to make it to his allies, he was going to do so. Seeing this, Don would simply smile, as he told Sanji that there would be no need to go up there. Sanji looked back at him and asked why. As Don simply smiled, he would open his coat pocket to reveal something to Sanji. It was what he had been looking for. The Sailor Morpher, along with the Green Ranger key. As Sanji took hold of it, he wondered why it was here. Don had had it this whole time? Of course, there was anger that washed over Sanji, as he grabbed him by a collar and asked why he would put him through all of this nonsense, all of this stupid talk and potentially getting themselves killed. However, Don would tell Sanji to calm down, as he explained to him that there was a reason for it all, why he had done what he had done. He would explain to Sanji that when it came to the life of a pirate, when it came to the life of a ranger, things did not go as easily as planned. In the end of the day, this was not a life for the faint of heart. When you take this morpher, when you take this power, you accept all of the responsibility, all of the hardships that come with it, Sanji. I simply wanted to see if you truly had that resolve, if you truly had what it took to rise above and become something greater. Sanji, when you use this power, you will have enemies not just of this world, but you will have enemies in worlds far beyond even your own understanding. And as a result of that, you may not get to live the life that you wanted. There have been many rangers before you who have met tragic and brutal ends. There were many rangers who lost their lives before ever truly accomplishing their dreams. But yet, even in spite of that, they were still able to press forward. If you can do that, if you can handle the weight and the responsibility that comes with this power, even if it means it might serve at the cost of your life, then I relinquish it to you. As Sanji heard that, it all started to make more sense to him now. This had been a test of Sanji's own resolve. The resolve to do what was needed of him, even at the cost of himself. Don would smile as he handed over the morpher and the key to Sanji. As the two of them looked out into the distance, making their way over towards the coast of the island, as the sun was beginning to rise anew, and as the oceans began to make their way for them. There was nowhere left to go but forward. Don would then explain to Sanji how to use the device. Sanji would take heed as he placed the key inside of the locket, twisting it open as the skull and crossbones of the Sailor Morpher would open, and a burst of green energy washed over him. Sanji could feel the immense power as he morphed and transformed into the Green Pirate Ranger. He felt renewed, energized. He felt as though he had the strength to fight 100 Kumas. This feels incredible. Yeah, it's something else. Alright, you don't have much time to lose. You've already wasted at least 1/3 of the time you have. Yeah, I know that. So what do? How do I get to Marineford? Don would point in the direction that he needed to go, explaining if he continued on that way, he should make it just in time. Well, that was great to know, but how was he going to get there? He didn't have a boat or anything. That's when Don would tell him to focus. Focus on what he needed. As long as he did that, the power would come to him. Sanji would close his eyes. He focused on what he needed. He needed something that could get him through the waters to Marineford. Just then, his belt buckle would open, revealing yet another key. As Sanji picked it up, it was the key for the Green RPM Ranger. He wasn't sure why, but he felt this was what he needed. As he placed it within the Sailor Morpher, turning in the locket, he would transform into the Green RPM Ranger. The moment he did so, he felt the knowledge flow through his head. He knew what this power was and what he needed to do. He summoned the Green Shark Zord. In a burst of energy, the large contraption would then appear next to him. Sanji would hop inside of the cockpit. He realized that this Zord was good for going through water, and if he conserved his power well, he should make it to Marineford in just the amount of time needed. As he turned back to thank Don before leaving, Don would no longer be there. There were no footprints or nothing to indicate that he had been there in the first place. Now Sanji was starting to trip out a bit. Had Don been real? Was any of this real? Or was it all just a figment of his imagination? All the same, he would simply say thank you one last time. As he turned forward and locked himself in, the Green Shark Zord started to race its way through the waters. Sanji was now on his way to Marineford. This concludes One Piece Rangers of the Sea, Part 3, based on the Heroes of the Morphing Grid series. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcasting that's to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned next week on Monday as we will be continuing One Piece Rangers of the Sea with part 4. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.